So, are you anyone have heard of the software as a service, platform as a service, or infrastructure as a service?
Yeah,
Okay,
I
I see some notes here. Now,
ouais.
in choosing where you're going cloud, this is the first step. Do you need a software? Do you need a platform? Or do you need an infrastructure? And we all have the habit of falling into the bandwagon and seeing like what others are doing without really giving it enough of thought. So I'm asking you, let's first see what is it that we want to use. Okay, let's just start with software as a service, as you see in the middle, which is the main one. So we are on a good track of moving slides, right? Okay. So what is software as a service? Do you use Gmail? Do you use Yahoo, AOL, all that? Do you use the storage on cloud, old school Dropbox or Google Drive, or even Office OneDrive, Share Drive? All of this are ways of providing software as a service on cloud for you. Okay, so you hear names, you see some of these names, you know them, some of them you don't know, like GitHub or like Kibana, which provides project management tool for you on cloud. And these are growing because more and more entrepreneurs are finding opportunities to take a need that you have and provide you the right software in the cloud. So the first step is really for you to identify, do I need a software? And if I do, let me not go around and create. If I need an email, let me not go set up an Exchange server on Azure and like kill myself to make something happen, which is already existing. The next thing, okay, what is the most important thing in here is you have no control. It's basically, this is what it is. And the one thing I don't have here is that you have to pay. If you go get a corporate level G Suite email, you're going to pay $7 a month. If you're using any of these services in their professional scale, you're going to pay. So this comes with a price tag and lack of any control. We go to platform as a service. Okay, I bet these names sound alien, supposed to sound alien, because these are not your day-to-day tools. These are platforms that developers use. Okay, if I ask you, do you know IDEs? You would say, what? Of course you don't, because you probably, unless you're a programmer, you wouldn't use IDEs. So these are very specialized platforms that developers use to create their tools. And they are, again, coming on cloud more and more. I don't know, do you remember the first time applications, right, like WordPress were becoming popular? WordPress is a typical platform as a service, which allows you to build your own tool on cloud. You can think of a lot of applications similar to that coming up. Some of these that you see here, like Salesforce, like Cloud Foundry, these provide very specific areas for very specific applications. Now, again, they are becoming more and more popular. Imagine Shopify. What do you think Shopify is? It is not a software. It's a platform that you can go and deploy your shop front using an existing tool. You have to do your legwork. It's not straightforward. It has a learning curve. But do you have to do everything from scratch? Absolutely not. Okay, so where does this come from? You have a lot more control compared to when you were doing software as a service, but you don't have full control. And when it comes to price tag, they definitely are pricey. Because someone spent a lot of time and effort. Look at Shopify. How many employees they have? 20,000 employees at the moment. What for? So you can easily create your shop online. So you are paying for those skilled resources who are maintaining your tools and provisioning what you need to develop. The last one, which is probably what everybody thinks is cloud computing, is the AWS, Azure, Google Cloud platform and all that. This is what we call infrastructure as a service. And what you have here is absolute full control over what you are doing in cloud. Basically, whatever you imagine, you can do here. But what is the saying in Spider-Man that says, with great power comes great responsibility? So I would say, with great flexibility comes great complexity. So let's see what you're signing off when you're moving into this direction. All IaaSs, at the end of the day, provide this. Provide basic tools that you need for your infrastructure, which is your database, a place to do your application management, networking tools, storage and databases, and computation power. So no matter who has been doing this or who starts to do it, I think VMware is starting to become the next IaaS provider. Now, what are they going to do? Very similar, provide these basic services that every IT infrastructure requires. But the challenge is how they actually provision this and what do they provide for you. Let's look at the case of, for example, Google Cloud Platform. Okay, this is the simplest basic tools Google provides in its cloud platform. Now, this looks too much. This looks complex, right? Now, what I'm asking you to do is forget about the nitty-gritty, the specific names. What you see is compute, the basic that we talked about, storage, networking, big data for your analytics, and the services that you need to get these items connected. Okay, so the idea is to really take the complexities away and look at the bigger picture. So that would give you a good understanding. Then you can do a deeper deep dive to select what's the most useful tool for you. Similar thing happens in AWS. So when you look at it, it's a complex, and this is basically out of 174 services that AWS provides. Okay, there's so many, you don't even want to read the names. Take away the complexity. What you have: computation, database, development tools, that is very similar to your application management. And then you have management, which is about your networking and support services. So you go to Azure, same story. Different naming, different services. What you have is the basic 4 or 5 functionalities. So what I was trying to achieve up to this point actually was to tell you that this beyond this seemingly complex web of different services, everybody is doing different things, is actually very, very basic functionality. Now, with that, let's see, how do we do our selection? Okay, I want you to think you want to be smart in moving in this direction. And as much as all of us hate slides that have too many words, but this is really basically when I'm going to stop and talk and go through each of these points one by one. Give you some ideas how to think without saying that this is the comprehensive way of choosing. Okay. The idea is always start from the first one is a software as a service, if you can, then move to platform as a service, then move to infrastructure as a service. So if you want a project management tool and you have Jira in the cloud, that's definitely your first choice. Remember when I was working with one of the teams in TELUS and they came and said, oh, by the way, we've gone to GCP now, we want to create our own project management tool in GCP. And don't quote me, but this is the dumb way of approaching a problem. Because if you need a specialized tool and that tool exists, you definitely want to find it rather than reinventing it. Okay, if it is available as a platform, if it's available as a software, that is your first choice. Now, if it really comes down to infrastructure as a service, you don't want to start to jump developing over cloud if you've never done that. You always develop with cloud mentality, and you always think we will migrate in phases. So one of the biggest mistakes that people do is that they come to this nebulous concept of cloud computing with little knowledge of what are the features and what are the capabilities, and they want to use all of its feature in one go. And that probably will break the whole pipeline. What you want to do is really consult with people, have an understanding that, okay, ultimately, we want to have this whole thing over the cloud. But where we want to start is to see what has to be phased out first. What is the fundamental phase that cannot go without cloud? And then build on top of that. And then you have to bear in mind that cloud computing does not reduce your cost. Okay, that is a myth. Okay, it shifts IT expenses in long run. And you pay as you go. But if you just jump into this and hoping that it will reduce your cost, that's not going to happen. Let me give you an example. Colab is a platform as a service in Google. If you want to run the machine learning on a Jupyter notebook, you get to Colab, you use a GPU shared, that's free of charge. You use that GPU over the entire course of your model training. Your model is done. Instead of taking, say, 2 hours, it takes 5 hours and it's all done. You go to Google GCP, Google Cloud Platform, start a virtual machine, a compute engine with a GCP, with a GPU, with similar capabilities. You run your you run your model over there. By the end of the day, you probably are paying like $200, $300. So this is really about understanding what is it that you need. And that's why I put these questions there. And it's really just a hint to you that if you ask the right question, you probably will find the right solution. Don't just go around that, which one is the best? I mean, if someone comes to you and says, which cloud computing is the best? The first thing is you say, can you find another consultant, please? Because you basically don't know what you're doing. But if someone comes with the right questions, am I making the next Yelp? If you are, if you know that you're going to make the next, I don't know, Spotify, okay, let's sit down and talk. What is your strategy? Right? Do you have increased demand from different places in the world? Do you have a spurious demand? Is your application breaking down? What is the problem you are solving? Or are you jumping in the migration, cloud migration bandwagon because everybody else is doing that? Right? Do you have your team around the world? And then it is how critical your disaster recovery is. And there are so many more questions. But the idea is make sure if you go around doing this without having a specific goal in mind, trust me, you're going to get lost. You're going to end up spending more and not achieving what you intended to achieve. Now, because I promised to do a bit of a benchmarking, let's do a bit of a benchmarking. Okay, I'll start with AWS because I know this best. I got certified for this last year. And this is not to say I like it best. It's just that I'm most comfortable. Okay, AWS was the first mover in this domain. What did it give him? Well, of course, because they were the first, they have the benefit of scale because they have so much more users. What is they saying, 80% or so? And then they have a wide range of services because as they were growing, this is that they have been in the market about 15 years now. As they grow, they learned, they identified services, and they added to their catalog. So today they have 170 plus services for basically everything you can imagine. In the next 5 years, they already have it in their catalog. So just open their browser, pick the service and use it. It's relatively easy, particularly if you want to use basic services and you want to set up your application in a very short time. So I haven't seen any cloud computing tool that is so straightforward on AWS and has so rich documentation and tutorials around the web for you to start a computation virtual machine and run an application over it. And most importantly, the basic applications is incomparably cheaper to any other service provider. And that's because of the scale. But then the challenge is when you start to use specialized tools. So like DynamoDB. DynamoDB is a legendary database, which is distributed. And it's like in terms of disaster recovery and availability is basically one of the best in the market. But it's way too expensive for applications that are not critical. Look at the IoT services, very similar. Look at the, if you put analytics on AWS Glue on IoT, similarly, you put a cluster with Kubernetes, your price in a very short time, a few hours, you're hitting $100, which is really too much in the context of, you know, more free services available. What AWS does extremely well, the way, and these are all my own understandings, I haven't taken them from anywhere, is their networking. Is if you're using their content delivery network around the world, if you're using their IP services and all that, they have done an extremely good job. And besides, their basic compute services and basically storage is basically easiest. You would be able to do it in 2 hours. So I'm not here to market AWS, candidly. This has been my personal experience, and that's what I'm sharing.
Dear Atoussa, I don't like to interrupt you, but actually,
time?
You had 15 minutes for presentation and 5 minutes for Q&A. If you actually...
I have basically 2 slides.
Okay.
Do you want me to make them quick?
Oh, of course, thank you.
Okay, so then it's Google. So Google is my second best. Today I'm working with Google in TELUS. What Google does extremely well is AI and ML. Like out of question, what Google offers in artificial intelligence is basically unmatched. And what happened is that Google had all of these services. It's not like Amazon that developed them for the customer. No, Google had them in the back store. They had developed all these tools, most importantly, Kubernetes, and which is, as you can see, it's emerging as the next OS and orchestration for containers. They have it's their backyard. Now they are just opening up every now and then they open up some open source tool that they have in their closet and let people use it. So that is why if you want to work with Google, you probably need a PhD. They are so complex to you. They never were developed for end users and customers. It was their own internal tools, but they are phenomenal in what they can do in terms of their flexibility, in terms of their speed, in terms of like, imagine. And Azure is not my least favorite. It's just that I don't have major expertise. All I can say is that Azure is where you go if you have a legacy product. You have a .NET.ASP application, you have a team of developers who have been working in Java. Where do you want to go? Obviously Azure, right? And basically Azure has made itself known around the world as a stable, worthwhile platform. So yeah, that would be it. And if you left me, I would have probably talked another 2 hours over this, but open to QA if you have any questions.
Thank you so much for your great presentation. I really enjoyed that.